Hey, Jonathan here. Let's learn the navigation and user interface in Archicad as we learn Archicad Foundations. Let's do it. So as we run Archicad for the first time, we should be prompted by this window where you can start anew, you can browse for old projects, or you can even go into the server and go into teamwork projects. Now for us, we're just going to start with a new project, and let's go ahead and pick up the template, Archicad 24 template, and the default profile. This way it would look the same for everybody. Let's start for me to tell you where everything is. So essentially we have the left bar, which is this one here, which is what I call the toolbox. Everything you want to create, it's usually going to be here. If you want to create a wall, if you want to create a window, a door, insert an object, a light, a facade, or even sections. You want to start a section tool or a worksheet or a camera. If you want to start a document, you can click here and you have all the polylines. Everything essentially you want to create as an object, you will find that in the toolbox, which is on the left side. When you go to escape, you're always going to land at the arrow tool, which is the selection. Now let's go to the top bar, which is the object settings, meaning that if I have a wall tool activated, you can here set up all the settings you want to set for that particular object before or during the command line. So you can scroll left and right. Now, all the way on the top, you got the general buttons. Here you can pick up parameters, find and select is right here. This is very useful for us. See, you click there and you have this little window appeared. You can close it up there. You have the guidelines that you can use. You have the snap buttons is right here. This is also very useful. Then you have the 3D cutaway. This is another one that we use a lot. And the trace reference is here. And then of course, the general menu up here where you get the file, import, export kind of things. Then edit is undo, redo, and everything that has to do with editing objects that have been made before. Views, if you want to turn off and on certain things of the display. Then in design is where things start getting a little bit complicated. Documents is where you can fine tune everything you want to do or export. Options, I would say, is if you want to change project preferences or the work environment, which we will be talking about in the next video. Teamwork is the best feature of Archicad, and it does exactly what it says. You work with different people at the same time, the same file. You can manage the windows that you have on, and the help bar on a Mac, you have a very neat function, which is you can write here a command that you're looking for example, solid. You hover on top and it shows that to you. It's great for Mac, but you can find this on Windows, sorry. Now, let's keep going and let's move on to the right side where we start getting the documents and the Navigator. So basically here, Archicad is a very complex program which allows you to show the same 3D model in different kinds of documents. If you want to see it on the ground floor, you can do horizontal sections, meaning floor plans, sections, vertical sections, elevations, interior elevations. You can work in 2D as well with the worksheets. You can do a big detail. You can jump into 3D. So basically, this helps you navigate all the different ways to look at a 3D model. All right. So for example, you have in the project map, and the way to move around it is basically you're going to have to work with these 4 buttons right here, which are the most essential ones to follow any kind of instruction in any kind of tutorial that has to do with Archicad. The first one is called the project map. So essentially what we're doing here is that we have the project map, the view map, the layout book, and the publisher. So it looks complicated, and now we're just going to cover half of it. But it's important that you understand how to move from modeling something and exporting that same thing at the other end. So let's start with project map. We have the project map where we get viewpoints. We get stories, sections, elevations, worksheets, 3Ds, all of that. And basically with no specific order or there's no specific setting of it, we just get what we got. Then we can then apply a layer combination, we can apply a scale, we can apply a pen set, a renovation filter, a dimension type, a zoom. And when we apply all these parameters and we save them, that turns a viewport into a saved view. I repeat, if you have a normal story and then you tell it which layer you want to have on or off, you turn that viewport into a saved view. Project maps are black, view maps are blue. Then as you move forward, you would then take those saved views and place them on a drawing, and those drawing you can then output into a DWG, a PDF, a video, or whatever. You can see it because everything is black. So basically you're going to be moving across a specific project that you have. For example, in the ground floor, I do a slab. In the first floor, I do another slab. And in the second floor, I do another slab. And this means that if I jump into the 3D view, you're going to see the 3 slabs that I just did in the middle, basically somewhere in the 3D model, right? If I jump back to the ground floor, you get that one. And if I move the ground floor 1, or if I delete it, when I go back to the 3D, you only get 2 slabs. So basically this is the head of the architect where everything is just on top of each other. Next up is the view map. This is crucial in Archicad because it's the essential way to work here. So I'm going to take a second to explain you how it works. Essentially, if I move over to the project map, into the general perspective, I can essentially do whatever I want. I can add an object, maybe some kind of furniture. I can put it up here, or add a column and put it in whatever floor I want. And when I go to the ground floor, I will be seeing that particular object that I did. And if I keep going up, I see everything that I've done. Even I can jump into elevations, which are these blue markers here, which are pre-made. For example, the south elevation. Double click there. And then I'll be looking at it from that perspective, the south elevation of everything that I just did completely without thinking about it. Then if I go to the 3D view, back to the 3D view, we see everything. Now it turns out that for this particular view, I do not want to show the furniture because it's going to, let's say, mess up my rendering, for example. So there's a way to do this, which is you turn off the layer, hide the layer of the furniture so you don't see it anymore. Then you can go to view map and save that current view. You can ask a bunch of questions which are not important right now. Just say create. And then you get a generic perspective, mine, which I just did. So what happens is that if I double click on the general one where everything is turned on, which is the physical model, you'll see how everything is turned on again. And the perspective is different. And if I move around, everything is on. But if I want my view that I prepared for my rendering, I have to go to the generic perspective, mine, double click. And as you can see, I can only see what I want to see in the view that I just said before. Why is this important? Because depending on the scale, depending on the user of this plan, if I want to show it to the client or if I want to show it to the electrical engineer, I might want to turn off the furniture and turn on the lights, depending on who is going to be receiving this. So what I just did is that in essence what Archicad does and the way you work with Archicad the best way possible, which is that you model in the project view where everything is unset, everything is being shown to you as you work. But then when you want to export something specific, you need to save that view specifically to say, no, this is going to be the view that I'll be using for the rendering. That is going to be the ground floor, for example, for the client and not for the structural engineer, for example. So what I just did was take the full model and configure what I want to show. I'm configuring a specific view and I save it. That way I can always go back to it or even take it and drop it on a layout and export it and import it. So sorry if that took a little bit longer. If this was a little bit confusing, it's definitely worth going back a couple of minutes and listening to it again. This is in essence what Archicad does, and understanding this will allow you to make the best of Archicad. Let's keep going. Next up is 2D objects versus the 3D objects. Some objects that we create on the left are based in 3D, and some objects only work in 2D. So Archicad allows you to essentially open up a 2D plan by working with worksheets, which is this one right here. It's basically a piece of paper that you can draw on top and it has nothing to do with the 3D model where everything is being drawn. All right? But more specifically, be careful to differentiate between the objects you create and if you are going to see them in the 3D view. There are only a few elements in 2D you are going to visualize in 3D, and view is the BIM views. For example, most of the elements are 3D, which means that you can see them in 3D and 2D. But general CADing elements, for example, polylines, lines, and circles, are only and exclusively in 2D, meaning that if I draw here a line, or an arc, or a polyline, I have it in the ground floor, but if I go to the 3D view, I won't see them. And it's not that they're lost, that they're turned off, or that you don't know where they went. They're just not there because you cannot see them in 2D. There are other 3D softwares, for example, like Rhino, where everything is always 3D. But in Archicad, just be careful or keep in mind that certain elements are visible only in the 2D view from Archicad and not on the 3D. For example, texts. That's it. Let's keep going and let's move on to navigation. How to move around in Archicad. Now, if you have Archicad running right now, it's definitely a good idea to try to follow me as I do this with me. So the easiest one is definitely zoom in and out with the scroll mouse. Then you can pan by clicking the mouse wheel. You can pan around. Now orbit is with hold down the shift key and click down the mouse wheel at the same time so you can orbit around a specific object. If you want to change the view, you have to switch between the tabs. You have a 3D tab and a ground floor tab and a south elevation tab. If you don't know where you want to go, you can always click on this show Windows overview. So it shows them all. And then you can pick where is it that you want to go back to. If you want to go back to the south elevation, you can. And notice how everything is linked together. For example, if I do a copy here and I go back to the 3D, now that model it's the same model. You're just looking at it from different view. So again, you can go back to the ground floor, south elevation, and physical model. Notice on the right how the highlighted one keeps moving around. Now, selection. To select any object, just basically go to the active arrow tool or just hitting the escape button many times. It's a legacy tick that I have brought in from my old times in AutoCAD. So basically just escape lets you reset whatever you're doing. So now you have selection tool, meaning that you can either click on any object once and then you have selected. There's also many ways to select. You can either just direct select, or you can also escape. You can change the way you want to select. For example, partial elements, entire elements. That's, for example, if you want to select only elements that are completely inside of the square, meaning here I will only be selecting the top slab. Or you can select through partial selection, meaning that in this case, I'm going to select everything that is partially inside and what's completely inside. Here we will get everything. And I like to keep this in the third option, which is dependent on the direction. Meaning that if I go from top left to top right, notice how the lines are dash, dot, dash, dot, dash, dot. That means that only what's inside is going to be completely selected like this. And if I want to do the partial selection, I have to go from the right to the left. And notice how the boundaries are now just dotted. When I let go and click again, I select everything that was partially in it. In specific cases, you might even want to have to activate some kind of selection shape, which is this one. You can do a polygon, and then that allows you to go specifically if you want to move around and only select the furniture, making essentially a partial selection of the rest. Double click and that should work. That's it for navigation. So now you should know where everything is and how to navigate this very complex program in a very easy way. I'll see you in the next one.